what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1952 Crosley Super Station Wagon. Up front is a 0.7 liter inline 4 and down below is a 3-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Crosley Station Wagon because I get to talk about what happened to Crosley. 1952 was the very final year for Crosley, and so this was one of the final cars that they ever made. And so I'm excited to dig into that with you today. If you want the story of how they began and a more introduction to Crosley, you can check out my 1946 Crosley pickup truck video that was released earlier this year. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 720cc engine under the hood. It is a 4-stroke water-cooled engine with an overhead cam, which is pretty wild for the 1940s technology. It makes 26.5 horsepower, and let me tell you, you really lean on that extra 0.5. It is not very quick, but it wasn't really meant to be. And this engine is actually derived from a generator that they would use in World War II. But we talked about that with the pickup truck. This is a cast iron block which came out in the late 1940s to replace the tin. Like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed manual transmission. It is unsynchronized, as you probably just heard me going up this hill. There she is. Right as rain, and it is a dogleg, so left and back is first, up and right is second, down and right is third, and where first gear is in traditional cars is where reverse is in the Crosley. Last but not least, it is rear-wheel drive, and Crosley was the first American brand to offer disc brakes back in the late 1940s. So, some pretty cool tech going on in here. How does it feel to drive the Crosley? It is pretty small. The interior doesn't feel small, and we'll talk about that later on, but you definitely are at the whim and the will of the road. Visibility is pretty good. Power isn't really there, but to be expected out of a 720cc inline 4. Just overall, I'm having a really good time driving it. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 5 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature and oil pressure. In the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my fuel and battery voltage, as well as it says Crosley Motors Incorporated, Cincinnati, Ohio. That's, of course, where these vehicles were manufactured and where Crosley was headquartered. The steering wheel doesn't have anything on it. I do have a retrofit blinker kit. And off to the left, this is actually your starter motor. So it does technically have push button start. Pretty neat. On the door, I just have my latch to get in and out and crank for the window, which was actually part of the super package from Crosley. Otherwise, they would just be slide windows. Moving into the center, we do get our radio, which of course is just AM. However, something interesting is that Crosley was one of the largest radio manufacturers in this era, and yet they didn't use a Crosley radio in their cars. They actually outsourced it, which is very, very strange. But then down below that, we get the key in the center, of course, to start the vehicle. Off to the left is the headlights, and off to the right is the choke. And then we have a little switch for our heater, but that's it. I also do get a tiny little glove box to the very right, which has some good information to know. And down on the floor, we just have the shifter. That's it. There are no cup holders, of course, here in the Crosley. So, as anticipated, it fails the big friggin' bottle test, even though the owner tried to bribe me with this. Now, the seats are pretty comfortable, actually, and honestly, I fit in here pretty well. The owner says that his record for someone sitting in here is 6'7", and they were actually able to fit, so that's pretty cool to see. However, I think my tune might change a little bit as we check out the back seat. All right. Squeezing myself into the back of a Crosley Super Station Wagon. For a guy my size and stature, I don't fit great back here. It's also not the worst back seat I've ever been in, but it's also not pleasurable. Kids, this was mainly meant for, would fit back here fine, and also people in the 1950s just weren't my size. And so the Got Milk campaign really got us as a country and changed how we use seats, and so back then it's not crazy. Headroom's actually good. You know, the interior space in the Crosley isn't bad at all. It looks very small on the outside, and it is a small car, but it doesn't feel like a small car. And so you don't have the giant A pillars, B pillars. You don't have the side impact crash protection either, so it is as wide as it is wide, if that makes sense. So something to note there. But let's hop into the trunk and take a look at the cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the Crosley Super Station Wagon, and I do want to note this is an added third brake light. This is not original. However, I do want to point out that the government did not require that third brake light until 34 years after this car was built. 34 years, that's half a lifetime. So pretty crazy. Nothing really too hard about it in here, just a single handle to open it there, and then you do have a locking mechanism up top as well. Once we are back here, no crazy amenities or features in the back of the Crosley, but to be expected. Don't get any outlets or anything like that. But there is the rear cargo space of a Crosley station wagon, and those seat belts are retrofitted, so those are not original. This originally did not have seat belts, but very, very cool to see a little tiny cargo van from America, from the Midwest in the 1950s. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I absolutely adore the look of this little tiny station wagon. It's so adorable. You just want to put it in your pocket and take it home with you, and I just might do that here today. Now, originally the wood basket weave on the back was hand painted. However, this vehicle was restored, and when it was restored, they swapped it to a vinyl, but this is exactly how it looked back in the 1950s, which is very cool, just in a modern way. One last thing about the exterior, I do want to actually two more things now that I think about it. First of all, there is a propeller on the front, which was part of the Super package as well, and normal Supers would have a giant hood ornament up on the front. This does not have that. The reason for it is because by the time this car was built in 1952, Crosley was pretty much already going out of business, and so they ran out of hood ornaments by the time this car was built, and they didn't have any more made because the company was closing. So normally a Super wagon would have a big hood ornament on the front, but this one doesn't because it was made so late. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a 1952 Crosley Super Station Wagon? Well, this car fills me with so much joy. It's just a fun little car to go around town. Everyone smiles, everyone waves, and it makes any drive an occasion. It's also fun because this is an American-made car, actually made here in the Midwest. This is a homegrown vehicle through and through, and it's always interesting to see that. Not only that, but the rich history of the Crosley Corporation as well, with how many things they did, like radios and refrigerators and appliances and whatnot. That's actually why this car is so slim, at least. The urban legend is that the car's under 48 inches wide because that's how wide appliance store front doors were, so they could, and they actually did sell these alongside a refrigerator. You could say, hey honey, we need a new transistor radio, we need a new refrigerator, and we need a new car. Well, Crosley could actually sell you all three of those in the same showroom. So what happened? This seems like a really good idea. America never really had small cars throughout the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, so why did they get rid of Crosley? Well, it wasn't actually up to Crosley. You see, they got the jump on the big auto manufacturers after World War II. Chrysler, Ford, and Chevy waited until about 1947 to 1948 to really ramp up car production again. They couldn't get enough steel to do the job after the rations, and so there were a couple of years where American cars were very hard to come by or even get at all. So Crosley got the jump and sold people brand new cars in 1946, 7, and 8. And those were their only really profitable years because when the big three started to catch up, they started offering cars at competitive prices that were a lot bigger with a lot more features. I mean, obviously, these cars weren't cross-shopped when brand new, but take a look at this 1952 Crosley or this 1951 Frazier. If you bought that a year old, that would have been a far superior car to this. So it just made more financial sense, but that meant that Crosley weren't selling well, and so by 1952, they closed up shop, and these cars went away. And it wouldn't be for almost another 30 years that America would put out a reasonable, sensible, small economy economy car. Crosley cracked a code that took everyone else 30 years to figure out. That's how far ahead these cars were and how wonderful they were at the time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed checking out this Crosley with me here today. Huge thank you to Dennis for letting me take out his Crosley and experience this, not only the station wagon, but the pickup truck that you saw earlier. Dennis has been absolutely wonderful to work with, and the entire Illinois chapter of the Crosley group is fantastic, and I can't say enough good things. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.